I was returning from dinner at my son's house when I received a message from an unknown number. Don't forget to look around. My heart sank in shock. Was this a threat? I replied, typing with trembling fingers. But the response was surprising. This is salvation. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The pounding on my front door shattered the evening quiet like a sledgehammer through glass. 3 sharp, aggressive knocks that spoke of desperation and barely contained rage. Open up, I know you're in there. Jasper's voice carried through the oak door, pitched higher than usual, strained with something that made my stomach clench. I set down my coffee cup, the porcelain clicking against the saucer with unusual force. My reading glasses slipped down my nose as I approached the entrance hall, already sensing the storm that waited beyond the threshold. The moment I turned the brass handle, Jasper pushed past me without invitation. His clothes were wrinkled, sweat beading across his forehead. Despite the cool May evening, his hands trembled slightly as he ran them through disheveled hair, and his eyes darted around the living room like a cornered animal, searching for escape routes. "Dad, I need $150,000 urgently." The words tumbled out in a breathless rush. "This is a matter of life and death." I closed the door with deliberate calm, watching my 38-year-old son pace across the hardwood floor like a caged predator. His breathing was labored, his movements jerky and unpredictable. Life and death. I crossed my arms, feeling the familiar weight of disappointment settle in my chest. "Jasper, how many times have I heard this tune? You don't understand." He spun around, his face flushed with panic and anger. "These people don't joke around." The grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily, marking the seconds of silence that stretched between us. I studied my son's face, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the way his jaw clenched and unclenched. This wasn't just another gambling debt. This was something deeper, more dangerous. And I'm not joking either. I kept my voice level, though my heart was racing. "Enough. Time to get your head straight." Jasper's fist came down on the oak dining table with a crack that echoed through the room. The sturdy piece of furniture, a family heirloom that had survived 3 generations, absorbed the blow without so much as a tremor. But Jasper's hand came away red, and I saw him wise. "You have no idea what you're doing," he hissed, cradling his injured knuckles. "These aren't the type of people who accept late payments." I moved to my armchair, settling into the worn leather with practiced ease. The position gave me a clear view of Jasper as he resumed his frantic pacing, his footsteps creating an irregular rhythm against the hardwood. "Tell me about these people," I said quietly. Jasper stopped moving, his back to me. For a moment the only sound was the tick of the clock and his ragged breathing. When he turned around, something in his expression had shifted. The panic was still there, but underneath it was something harder, more calculating. "Tony Castellano and his associate. They run operations throughout the South Side." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I borrowed money to cover previous debts. And now you've dug yourself deeper than ever before." I finished the sentence with a sigh that seemed to come from my bones. "Jasper, I've been pulling you out of holes for 20 years. Each time you promise it's the last time." He approached my chair, dropping to one knee beside it. For a moment he looked like the little boy who used to crawl into my lap after nightmares, seeking comfort and protection. But the resemblance was superficial. The eyes that met mine held no innocence, only desperation and barely concealed manipulation. "This time is different, Dad. They gave me until tomorrow night. If I don't pay," he swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "They showed me photos of what happens to people who don't pay." The weight of his words settled in the room like smoke. I studied his face, searching for truth among the layers of fear and calculation. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once, then fell silent. $150,000. I repeated slowly. "Where exactly did this money go?" Jasper, his eyes shifted away from mine, focusing on a spot somewhere over my shoulder. "Poker, high-stakes games, and basement clubs. I was winning for weeks, Dad. I was so close to clearing everything. And then you lost it all." The familiar pattern was as predictable as sunrise. Plus more. Jasper's hands clenched into fists at his sides. You don't understand what it's like. The pressure, the calculations, the rush when the cards fall. Right, I'm good at this. Dad, I just need one more chance to know. The word came out harder than I intended. I won't do it. Jasper's face transformed in the space of a heartbeat. The mask of desperation fell away, revealing something uglier underneath. His eyes narrowed, and when he spoke, his voice carried a venom I'd never heard before. You've always been selfish. All your love went to that company. I remained seated in my armchair, watching the stranger who wore my son's face. The grandfather clock continued its steady rhythm, indifferent to the storm brewing in my living room. I worked for you. For your future, I said quietly. For my future. Jasper's laugh was sharp, bitter. He began pacing again, his movements more aggressive now, hands gesticulating wildly. You don't even know when my birthday is. October 15th. I didn't hesitate. And I remember every gift you broke or sold. The truth of it stopped him mid-stride. His face flushed deeper, and for a moment I saw shame flicker across his features, before anger consumed it completely. That's right. Throw it back in my face. His voice rose to a near shout. Every mistake, every failure. You keep a mental ledger of all my faults, don't you? I watched him move around the room like a hurricane, knocking into the coffee table, sending my evening newspaper sliding to the floor. The lamp on the side table trembled as he passed too close, his movements becoming increasingly erratic. I keep a ledger of love, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos surrounding me. Every time I picked you up from the police station, every debt I paid, every second chance I gave you. Love, he spun around, his eyes wild. You call control love, you call manipulation love. The irony of his words hung in the air between us. Here was my son, who had just attempted to manipulate me through threats and sob stories, accusing me of the very behavior he'd perfected. I shifted in my chair, the leather creaking softly. Jasper, sit down, let's talk about this calmly. Calm? His voice cracked. There's nothing calm about having a target on your back. There's nothing calm about knowing that tomorrow night, if I don't have their money, they'll say stopped, his hands running through his hair again, leaving it even more disheveled. Sweat had soaked through his shirt, despite the cool evening air filtering through the windows. You'll regret this, old man. The words came out low, threatening. They settled in the room like a physical presence, making the air feel thick and dangerous. For the first time since he'd arrived, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Jasper moved toward the mantelpiece, where family photos stood in neat rows. His hand hovered over them for a moment before selecting the silver-framed portrait of Mabel, himself as a young boy and me. We were at Navy Pier. Mabel's smile, radiant young Jasper perched on my shoulders, all of us squinting against the sun. With deliberate slowness, he lifted the frame and held it at eye level. Maybe it's time you learned what real consequences feel like. The frame slipped from his fingers. Or perhaps he let it fall. The silver frame struck the hardwood floor with a sharp crack, and the glass spider webbed across our faces. The sound seemed to echo longer than physics should have allowed. For a moment we both stared at the damaged photo. Mabel's face was bisected by a long crack, and Jasper's childhood image was fractured into 3 separate pieces. Get out, I said quietly. Jasper straightened, brushing imaginary dust from his wrinkled shirt. The gesture was almost casual, but I could see his hands were still shaking. You'll change your mind, he said, moving toward the front door. When you realize what you've done, you'll call me. I won't. He paused at the threshold, his hand on the door frame. For a split second, I thought he might apologize, might show some trace of the son I'd raised. Instead, he smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. We'll see. The door slammed behind him with enough force to rattle the windows. The sudden silence felt oppressive after the storm of his presence. I remained in my chair, listening to his footsteps fade down the front walk, then the sound of his car engine starting and driving away. Only then did I stand and approach the broken frame. Kneeling carefully, I gathered the pieces, noting how the crack had separated us. Mabel on one side, Jasper and me on the other. The symbolism was so perfect, it felt intentional. The glass cut my finger as I lifted the largest piece, and a drop of blood fell onto Mabel's fractured smile. I carried the damaged photo through the house, turning off lights Jasper had left blazing in his wake. My footsteps echoed hollow against the hardwood as I made my way to the study, each step measured and deliberate. The house felt different now, as if his anger had left invisible scars on the walls. My study welcomed me with familiar warmth. Leather-bound books lined the walls, their spines catching the soft light from the brass desk lamp. Awards from Wells Tech Solutions gleamed modestly from their places among family photographs and mementos. This room held the accumulation of 40 years of honest work, careful planning, and measured success. I set the broken frame on my desk, and poured 2 fingers of whiskey from the crystal decanter Mabel had given me for our 20th anniversary. The amber liquid caught the lamplight, and I found myself staring into its depths as if seeking answers. The wing-back chair by the small fireplace received me like an old friend. From this position, I could see everything that mattered: the photo albums on the lower shelf, the filing cabinet that held important documents, and the desk where I'd made the decisions that built our family's security. Mabel always said, "Urban, you're too soft with the boy." I spoke to the cracked photograph, her fractured smile somehow still radiant. If she were alive, she'd have stopped this madness years ago. I opened the family album, pages whispering as I turned them. There was Jasper at 6, gap-toothed and grinning beside his first bicycle. At 12, sullen in his little league uniform after quitting mid-season. At 16, standing beside the car I'd bought him, the same car he'd totaled 3 months later while racing his friends. Each photograph told a story of potential squandered, of chances given and wasted. But there were other photographs too, hidden behind these family memories. I pulled out a manila folder labeled Jasper Financial Records, and spread its contents across the coffee table. Bank statements, receipts, check stubs, the paper trail of 20 years of enablement. My hands moved automatically, calculator clicking as I tallied the amounts: car payments, insurance claims, legal fees, gambling debts. The numbers climbed steadily: 20,000, 50, 85,137,462. The figure stared back at me from my notebook written in my careful handwriting. Enough to buy a house, enough to fund a small business, enough to secure a comfortable retirement for someone who'd worked honestly their entire life. I sipped the whiskey, feeling its burn trace down my throat. Outside, the neighborhood was settling into evening quiet. Somewhere a television played, its laugh track drifting through open windows. Normal families living normal lives, probably unaware that their neighbor was calculating the cost of his own son's destruction. The wedding photograph with Mabel drew my attention next.